After one of the biggest wins in recent memory for the Panthers, they followed up with a damaging loss at home against New Orleans Saints. Let's break it all down right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube, where I am live inside Bank of America Stadium and live after every single Carolina Panthers game, and listen wherever you can listen to your favorite podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The Carolina Panthers 7, the formerly 1-8 New Orleans Saints 17. An awful loss at home a week after one of the biggest wins of the David Tepper era, certainly the biggest win for Dave Canales in his year and a half as the Panthers coach. And today, maybe the worst loss, but there's certainly been plenty of terrible losses suffered over the last year and a half, but not very many, where fans spent the entire week dreaming up of possibilities that this team could finally return to the postseason for the first time since 2017. That's what that win last week in Green Bay allowed Panther fans to rightfully do. You had a 1-8 team coming to your building on Sunday. That felt like a game that you should win. You play them again later on this season in New Orleans, and then you have next week a game against an Atlanta Falcons team that you beat 30-0 at home. Falcons team that lost yet again in overtime in Munich today, or in Berlin rather, against the Colts. So this felt like an opportunity for this team to finally make something out of themselves. And certainly they're no longer a basement dweller in the NFL unless things just completely fall apart here in the final 7 games of the season. They are squarely a mediocre team. But it felt like just for a week at least, maybe they could be just a little bit more than the mediocre team that they have proven to be through the first 8 weeks of the season after getting that win last week at Lambeau Field. And that did not happen, which has you wondering, did they overlook the Saints? Now, Ike Ekwonu, the Carolina Panthers starting left tackle, was willing to speak to the media after the game here on Sunday, and this is what he said when he was asked about the team's preparation. If anything seemed off this week, that could have led him to believe that this was possible. And he said, quote, "Too many repeats throughout the week. We just weren't locked into the small details. A couple of guys spoke about it. Coach spoke about it throughout the week. You just can't get days back. If you have a tough day on Thursday, a tough day on Friday, you can always look forward, but you can't get that day back. So that preparation or lack thereof is going to add up. And unfortunately, it cultivated into what we saw today." Flat out, your starting left tackle told you that these guys were not focused throughout the week heading into this game against a divisional opponent. They may be 1-8, but this is a division game. We always talk about the hyper importance of winning in the division. This is a game that you need to take care of at home, especially coming off of a big win. Knowing what remains the rest of the season, on Monday night a couple weeks from now, they could have been 7-4. Playing against San Francisco 49ers team, who's right now down 14-0 against the Rams, who you also have to play here inside Bank of America Stadium. Not to mention, you got 2 games against the Bucs, and you also have a game against Seattle. This was one you had to have if you really, really wanted to be there sitting in January playing playoff football. And they still have a chance to play meaningful games the rest of the season, but this is a tough blow. More so because of what it does to the fan base psyche for all the people that believe. And I'm sure there are plenty of y'all that say, I don't know. I bet they're going to go out there and they're going to lay an egg and lose to the Saints. And, well, for the folks out there who believe that, you were right. And I was asked by Nick Carboni, sports director over at WCNC. I'm on with him and Danielle Stein every Sunday night after Sunday Night Football, breaking down the Panthers game of the week. And he asked me in the press box before kickoff, he's like, am I crazy to think that there's no way they can lose this game? And I told him, yes, you are, man. It's the NFL. They get paid too. And come on, it's the Panthers. We have seen this team have wild swings from a great win against Atlanta to getting your ass kicked against the Patriots, to coming back, getting a big win, to then getting blown out by Buffalo, to last week, now to today. It's up, down, up, down, up, down. And God, it's got to be bad for your blood pressure if you're a Panther fan, because my goodness, how does this happen on this day? Well, how does it happen? If the Panthers can't run the ball, they cannot win. It's that simple. We talked about this really throughout the week, but on Friday, one of my keys to victory was to get the passing game in order, because eventually, when you play the Rams, you play the Niners, the Bucks twice, and the Seahawks, you're going to have a vertical passing game. It's great to be able to run the football that travels on the road. It carries throughout the season as the weather gets bad, and 72-degree days. I don't know when the weather is going to get bad here in Carolina, but still, you got to eventually be able to win in the pocket and find vertical shots and just down, quarter to quarter, have a competent passing game, which right now they do not have. So when Rico Dowdle goes out there today, and not really by any fault of his own, because the Saints, being wise, do that, yeah, man. Well, Bryce Young's been clutch and made some plays against Miami and against Dallas and last week on that final drive against Green Bay. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, most of the fourth quarter. What's he really doing that's concerning you and makes you believe that he's going to be able to beat you if you stack the box and take away Rico Dowdle, who has been one of the best backs in the NFL throughout the entirety of the season? 18 attempts for Rico today, 53 yards, 2.9 yards per attempt, had that touchdown, and they were fortunate to even score a touchdown on an opening drive. Bryce, a terrible interception. They got bailed out by a roughing the passer call, the right call, but still lucky to even score. That's how bad it was offensively today. And we saw in those wins against Miami, while Bryce had those bad turnovers, he made key throws, like the fourth down throw to Tedero McMillan, the one touchdown Xavier Legette on the trust pass, as they called it, the throw to X on the final drive, the throw to Jaycee Horn Jr., the throw to Mitchell Evans. He made big plays when you needed him to. Dallas, I thought he played a good game, had 3 touchdown passes. I thought he played well in that, but it was Rico who was a catalyst in each of those wins. And last week, where heading into the final drive of the game, he had 83 yards passing. Then he had 19, finding Jalen, finding T-Mac, and then a great disguise there, telling Rico, hey, this is your pass protection. Psych, we're going to hand it off. Runs for 19 yards. That's enough for Ryan Fitzgerald to hit that 49-yard field goal. He had made the plays when you needed him to. And you got to give him credit. I'm not trying to take anything away from Bryce in those situations, but we saw they were winning because of Rico Dowdle and an offensive line that's been banged up. Their 8th starting combination in 10 games happened today. They have been good. They have held the standard despite all of the injuries that they've had. They're winning those games because of Rico. And the defense even had stepped up, especially against Miami. Against Dallas, they made the play when they needed it to. And then last week, stopping Green Bay, holding them to 13 points in 5 red zone trips. Those were the factors that led him to win and getting just enough out of Bryce. But I had said, you're just not going to continue to win games, especially against quality opponents in the National Football League, by throwing for 102 yards. And then today, you look at the first half where, let me go find how many yards they had in the first half, because this has been all too often a common occurrence. They had 83 total yards to 236 for the Saints in the first half, 54 of those through the air from Bryce Young, who on the day was 17 of 25 for 124 yards, an interception, a fumble that gets credited to him, even though it could have been Jimmy Horn. He takes the blame. Jimmy takes the blame. It doesn't really matter. It was a terrible turnover that happened after they were fortunate. The field goal was blocked. And by rule, and I wasn't aware of this, apparently this happened on Thanksgiving in the snow between Dallas and whoever back in 93. My first Thanksgiving, that would have been. Leon Lett goes out there, jumps on the ball, doesn't get it, and the opponent ends up getting the first down, because if on a blocked field goal, it crosses the line of scrimmage, and in this situation, it bounced off of Ike Ekwonu's helmet and crossed the line of scrimmage. If that team that blocked it, which would be the returning team, the receiving team, if they touch it and they don't hold on to it, it's a muff. And if the kicking team gets it, it's their ball. So that's what happens. So you got a massive break, and then you fumble in the red zone and take away an opportunity to either have tied the game at that point in time down 10-7 or take the lead. So you look at Bryce Young's day. I provided these stats a couple times last week when looking at the 17 teams that were in the hunt in the playoffs heading into week 10 and the 17 quarterbacks who have started for those teams, or at least are their primary starter. Bryce Young ranked at the bottom or near the bottom in most of those major statistical categories. He was 16th in passer rating, only ahead of Trevor Lawrence. Last in EPA per dropback, last in EPA per play, last in explosive pass percentage, last in passing yards, last in yards per attempt, 12th in successful play percentage. You could not find anything that told you that of the quarterbacks playing on contending teams, that Bryce Young was not the worst starter production-wise or one of the worst starting quarterbacks production-wise. I'm not saying talent-wise that he's one of the worst, but as far as the production so far throughout the season in his 8 games that he had started through the first 9 weeks of the NFL season, he was at the bottom or near the bottom when comparing him to all those other starters playing for those teams that are in the hunt for the playoffs here in 2025. So for as clutch as he's been, he's not giving you enough throughout these games to have confidence moving forward, especially after today, that he's going to make the plays throughout the game necessary to keep you in it and then be able to win when you face off against far superior offenses and passing games the rest of the season. And it's alarming, man. And we still have 7 more games. It's only 1 week. And I know it's not just only 1 week because he's only thrown over 200 yards one time this season against the Cardinals, where their secondary, they were dropping like flies in that game. The Panthers were down 20-3. It was mainly garbage time until it wasn't all of a sudden. And then when they needed something to happen on that final drive, no completions. So the passing game has been a joke. And Dave Canales said it's on him. Bryce says it's on him. All the receivers say it's on them. In totality, it's been a failure so far throughout this season. They've had certain moments where it's worked out, but they've really only had one guy who's shown to be a consistent threat, and Tyrell McMillan. And meanwhile, Adam Thielen, who went back home, is not even a part of the Vikings offense at all. And that's not to say that Adam should be here in Carolina. It's just interesting to look that Minnesota said, hey, let's get our guy back. And they're not even utilizing him, and you can wonder maybe what things look like here. Now, Jalen Coker missed a lot of time. Xavier Legette missed a couple weeks and really hasn't been a big piece of the game plan. And even looking at today, I think he had 1 target, and it was the overthrow in the corner of the end zone that Bryce tried to throw to him on about like a 32-yard throw. So you got to figure it out there, and the quarterback has to be so much better. And you look at the turnovers. He has 10 turnovers so far this season. They have resulted in 51 points for Panthers opponents. Panthers opponents have 68 points off of turnovers. That is the most in the NFL. Opponents, again, have turned Bryce Young's turnovers into 51 points. If that was one team, that is more than 28 teams that have allowed points off turnover-wise so far this season. So when they turn it over, the sudden change defense does not make the plays necessary, cannot hold them to 3, cannot hold them to a punt. It's 7. And it leads to this kind of result where a Saints offense that outside of 2 plays really didn't do much until it was really all said and done there. And they got down to inside the 10 and decided to knee it out because it was after 2-minute warning. Carolina had no timeouts. It's tough to see, man. And yeah, we can have a conversation about Bryce Young. I want to wait to see the next 7 weeks. I'm not making excuses. He must be better. And it very clearly, at least to me, today, he held him back. New Orleans said, Rico, you're not going to beat us. And Bryce couldn't do it. And you know what's going to happen next week? Atlanta's going to say, hey, Rico, you're not going to beat us. Bryce, can you do it? And what are the Rams going to do? What are the 49ers going to do? What are the Bucks going to do? What are the Seahawks going to do? They're going to make Bryce Young at least attempt to make Bryce Young beat them. In sitting here 2.5 years into his career as a former number 1 overall quarterback, where you're sitting at 5-5, where heading into this week you had realistic opportunity and chance to make to the playoffs, and still could be out on the table for it to be at this stage where teams are saying, yeah, that guy's got to beat us. That's not really something that bodes well for the future for Carolina at the quarterback position when it comes to Bryce Young. So we'll see how it plays out. But today, again, was a good reminder, too, on an opening drive, they scored a touchdown. That does not mean you're going to have success on the day. After that opening drive, 4 straight punts. And then it was the end of the half. Then a blocked field goal, a fumble, an interception, and that throw. Looking at it live, I felt like, okay, what happened there? Did T-Mac have the wrong depth of his route? Was it just a bad recognition and throw by Bryce? I don't know. He said after the game, it was zone coverage, bad read, bad throw. All right, certainly it was the case. As Alontae Taylor gets that interception, and on a throw that it didn't even look like it was going to get to T-Mac. If anything, it's going to be on his shoestrings if he was able to catch that ball. So unacceptable. And your quarterback, when he turns the ball over, it kills you every single time for the most part. You've been able to dig yourself out of it against Miami. Couldn't do it today against a bad Saints team. And we looked at it when you played against the Jets, you struggled on offense. When you played against the Dolphins, the run game carries you through, and Bryce made enough plays. Today, you struggled against another bad football team, and the reason why you couldn't win is because you could not throw the ball. So we'll find out. We're going to find out here the next 7 weeks who exactly Bryce Young is and what the Panthers have in his quarterback, and if he is indeed the one holding them back from being a potential playoff team moving forward into 2026 and maybe even this season. But a bad day for Bryce Young and a bad day for the Panthers passing game, run game, and all around offensively, losing again 17-7 against the New Orleans Saints. The defense, aside of a couple of plays that Jaycee Horn gave up, they really weren't that bad, but they gave them up, and that was a difference in this game. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it, because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS. That's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is a unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software created. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. Back here on this live edition of Locked On Panthers Live after every single Panthers regular season game. Anytime there's any big news as well here on YouTube, you can always check out the show later on in your YouTube feeds if you miss it live. And of course, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, sitting here inside of Bank of America Stadium, Carolina Panthers losing 17-7 against New Orleans Saints. A shocking loss, I suppose. Again, was talking to Nick Carboni of WCNC before the game, asked me, am I crazy to think that they're not going to lose, that they can't lose? And I'm like, no, man, they can absolutely lose. It's the NFL. It's a week-to-week league, and we've seen the Panthers go from the highs and go right back down to the lows, and that's where they are right now as an organization, just not mature enough at this stage of this rebuild to go from a win like they had last week against Green Bay to win like today. And I had someone hit me up in my DMs at Julian Council over on Twitter and also on Blue Sky at Julian Council. And they're saying to me, was it more just the Packers last week? Like, what was it? If you look at the Packers game, and a big reason we broke it down why the Panthers won was because the Panthers defense held them in the red zone. 13 points on 5 red zone trips for the Packers. 5 of their 7 drives ended in the red zone. So it's not like Green Bay struggled to move the ball. They just struggled to finish. That was their issue. And they had the 2 turnovers as well. And one of them that happened on the opening drive in the red zone. And then they had a bunch of injuries to Tucker Kraft, Matthew Golden. That did not help them later on in that game and throughout the game. The passing game that had been spectacular the week before against Pittsburgh, but the defense stood tall for Carolina. So I give the Panthers a lot of credit. But you also looked at it, again, Green Bay had more yardage. They got down the field. Had they played to their percentage, which was 70% of the time they got into the red zone heading into that game last week, they had scored 70% of the time. So you look at the 5 trips, let's just say on 3 of those, they scored a touchdown. That's 21 points. And in the others, if they came up with nothing like they did on the opening drive, they got a field goal, that's 24. And Carolina loses that game. So, yes, a lot of it was Green Bay, but it was also the Panthers standing tall, making things happen, and capitalizing on the mistakes that Green Bay made. But it's the NFL. They get paid. Panthers get paid. It's a week-to-week league. You got to step back every single week, reset on Monday, and then look and see what you can do from there. And this week, Kornicki Ekwonu, these guys did not lock into the small details. And they were warned about it by the leaders in the locker room, by Dave Canales, and didn't matter because they wasted days, did not have good enough days. And this is the result of their lack of preparation, their lack of ability to focus in on the small details when they were a 5-4 football team that, while coming off a big win, had also gotten their ass kicked by Buffalo and by New England, lost to a Cardinals team that is not good, and then also lost to a Jags team that I don't think is very good either. So you look at defense, Jaycee Horn, always there to talk to us after the game. He took full responsibility for what happened. I know you're probably saying, and you were in the moment, that touchdown that Chris Olave had, that should have been offensive pass interference. JC said to us that the guy that gives him information just on how things are officiated in the NFL said they're not calling very many OPIs this year. So do not expect to get those. And JC said, knowing full well about that, he needed to do a better job with this leverage and in his coverage there of Chris Olave. He didn't do it. Olave caught the ball, scored a touchdown, jumped into the stands, and celebrated there. Then later on the touchdown that effectively ended things to Juwan Johnson, JC falls down. Juwan Johnson's wide open. There was another receiver also wide ass open on that play. Shuck could have chosen either one of them, and it's a touchdown. And JC falls, and there's 14 points right there. And that's the difference. Because other than that, it's not like New Orleans did anything. And JC said it like that. He gave up 2 big plays. He says, I take full responsibility. He said, quote, I am one of the leaders of this team. I'm one of the highest paid players. I got to be better. And asking Derek Brown about what happened today. Because it wasn't really on him. He didn't play a bad game. I thought Nick Scorton was excellent in this game, especially that 4th down sack that he had at Tyler Shuck. I don't look at the defense and say, oh, man, they were horrible. And I didn't expect Tyler Shuck, and hell, hand up. I came out here on Thursday and even on Friday when talking about this game and said, I don't think Tyler Shuck's anything special. He didn't play well in his first career start, whatever. But still, I looked at him. Guy played 7 years of college football, man. I understand he got hurt a lot. But when he was at Oregon, wasn't impressed. At Texas Tech, he was barely even healthy. When he was at Louisville, he was an upgrade, certainly over Jack Plummer, who we've seen is not a good player. And clearly Tyler Shuck is at least someone who's capable of helping you win games on Sundays, which Jack Plummer never will be as a quarterback. So, yeah, I overlooked Tyler Shuck. Didn't think he was going to be all that good. He went out there 19 of 27, 282 yards, 2 touchdowns. Saints fans, you can throw whatever you want at me and tell me I'm an idiot if you want. I don't really care. But, yeah, Tyler Shuck, hats off to him. But should a rookie quarterback making his 2nd career start, both of which are on the road, look that good against you? And it's not like they didn't get pressure on him, because they did get some pressure. He was able to evade the rush and make some plays that way, like that play on the first drive that New Orleans had to Juwan Johnson. So I give him a lot of credit. The Panthers defensively, I don't look at them as the problem. JC, he singled himself out 2 plays he didn't make, and those turned out to be the difference in the game today. As Carolina, otherwise, it's 7-3, and it could have just been a awful slog of an offensive performance, but you found a way to win because your defense was great. Today, defense wasn't great on 2 of those plays. Individually, Jaycee Horn was not great in those 2 plays, and those resulted in the touchdowns, and you have the result you have today, 17-7. But, of course, this squarely falls on the offense and on the culture of the team to not be ready and not to prepare and be focused throughout the week and to lose to what was a 1-8 football team and a division rival in the New Orleans Saints. Falcons next week. So I guess we can put those playoff hopes on pause, but we have seen them bounce back from these situations before. Can they do it again? We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Shout out to the 288 of you that are live with me right now and everyone who's tuned in and everyone who tunes into the show. Really appreciate y'all. I was hoping that today we could be talking about a 6-4 team that was going to be heading on the road against a Falcons team that's coming from Berlin off of an overtime loss at home on the road next week. I was hoping that we could be talking about that. Instead, we're talking about a 5-5 football team. And here's the thing. It's not what happened, but if you could have just flipped the results, lose to Green Bay, beat New Orleans, there's no way people are as mad as they are right now. I'm guessing that before that game kicked off last week against the Packers, you all, the most of you, I'm sure there are plenty of you that believed, or at least a few of you that believed that they were going to beat Green Bay. But most of you probably expected to be 5-5 at this point in time. Doesn't make it any better. Does not make this any less sickening for you of a loss. But I'm guessing you thought they were going to be 5-5 at that spot. So with that likely being the case, they now move forward against a Falcons team who, again, they beat 30-0. And you got to feel with them coming back. I don't know when they got to Berlin. I don't know if they did like the Panthers got there late in the week and one practice on Friday. I don't know how they went about it. But you would feel that that was a game that certainly is winnable. And even after losing today, still is a winnable football game. So you flip the results, you're 5-5. Don't really feel as bad. But that's not the reality. That's not the world that we live in. And that's why this is a sobering loss, because of all the dreams that you had after beating Green Bay, that you could get to 6-4. And then you could go to beat Atlanta again, be 7-4 with 5-6 games left and squarely in position to be a team that can be right there and make the playoffs. Would have had that Monday Night Football spotlight, which you're still going to have, but could have had it at 7-4 instead of potentially at 6-5 against San Francisco, and the whole NFL being like, oh man, Carolina, they're actually for real. They're actually in this. Instead, it's just going to be like, oh, well, Panthers got that big win against Green Bay. Guess that clearly was the Packers not showing up to work, and Carolina loses to New Orleans. All right, well, let's go forget about them, whatever. That's what's going to happen. And does it really matter what the national media says? Not really, but still, you would love to not be a part of that narrative that you can get a big win like you had against Green Bay, then turn around and lose like this. But we have seen them bounce back, and they all said it was Jaycee, Bryce, Derek, Christian Roseboom talked to us, Rico Dowdle did. It was all about not executing. They didn't execute. So they execute better next week, they can win that game. They execute better the weeks after that, they can win those games. So we'll see if they can bounce back again. They got off to a bad start, really bad 6 quarters, had that comeback attempt against Arizona, came back the next week, and blew the doors off of the Falcons. The next week, they got off to a decent start. Punt return happened, and everything went to hell there in New England. They came back the next week, got down 17-0. But then Bryce made the right plays when you needed him to. Rico did the damn thing, and you beat Miami. You found a way to beat Dallas week after that, and you played not great offensively, but were good defensively, and you won that game against the Jets. And then you turn around and got blown out at home, in a way, because it was really a road game against the Bills, and then you got the win against Green Bay, and then what happened today. So we've seen them do it. We've seen them bounce back from Arizona. We've seen them bounce back from New England. We've seen them bounce back from Buffalo. Let's see it happen again, because if they don't bounce back, and they're sitting at 5-6, heading to San Francisco, then that's where you start to get concerned and see how things go sideways. This is still, to me, a season that was always going to be about, can you take another step towards just being a middle-of-the-road NFL team? Can you improve upon a 5-win season? All of that felt like it could be changing after what happened last week, but still understanding they still had a lot of tougher games available, a lot of tough games down the road. But they at least proved, after getting blown out by the Patriots and the Bills by combined 60 points, that they were capable of winning those games against high-level opponents like Green Bay. They certainly got a lot of help, but it's not like Carolina didn't go out there and lead the Packers to have the kind of mistakes that they had in that game a week ago at Lambeau. So they can still go out there and win some of these games down the stretch. But to me, if they can find a way to beat New Orleans later on, beat Atlanta, take a game or two against those other 5 games they have against Bucs twice, against Seattle, against the Rams, against San Francisco, like that's still a positive season. But this right now in the moment obviously does not feel good, because they should have never put themselves in a position where they didn't take New Orleans seriously in a division rival game, coming off of a big win, an opportunity to show people who may have even still overlooked you after last week that, okay, Carolina's serious. They beat Green Bay, and they went out there and took care of business, which is what I wanted to see them do. And not just take care of business, but win convincingly. And, well, they lost convincingly today, unfortunately, to the New Orleans Saints at home, as they fall now to 5-5 on the season, with a trip to Atlanta next Sunday for the Panthers. So that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe, follow the show for free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council. I'm back on Wednesday answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is at me or DM me on either Twitter or on Blue Sky, and I'll answer your questions this coming Wednesday. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. I'll be back with y'all on Tuesday, as we'll hear from what Dave Canales had to say after reviewing the film. Take a look back at the good, the bad, and the very ugly from the 17-7 loss. And, of course, review the keys of victory that they flatly ignored. All that coming up on Tuesday here on the Locked On Panthers.